So what we're going to do is we're going to deconstruct some more near-death experiences. This particular one, the reason that I want to do this is because, I follow these on YouTube quite a bit, and I watch a lot of them. And I've noticed a tremendous uptick and the New Age people going through and discussing near-death experiences and trying to put a New Age spin on them. And it's really destructive because I believe God intends these to direct people to the truth. And I see Satan trying to subvert that. And so we're going to be talking about the tricks that, when you look at what they're saying, for Christians that aren't well grounded in the Bible, it could really do damage, and it has done damage, okay? So if these ever come up where people use near-death experiences to say that there is no such thing as sin, there is no hell, God he's cool with everything, and that's what they're saying. They're saying, oh yeah, see there, all the good people that died, and there's no hell, and the people that did have hell is because they had mental illness, and they were just, that was just on them. They were in a bad place. Yeah, the people with the hell experiences, they're acting like that it's just delirium. Like if you were in a bad place emotionally, then you have a hell experience, as though you put yourself there. Okay. And so this is a rebuttal to that. Most fundamentalist Christians don't touch this subject, or say it's of the devil, and they walk away from it. And it's like, no, don't be doing that. You can't walk away from this. These experiences are very consistent with the Bible. But you need to understand the model. And if you understand the model that I'm going to present, then it makes sense. But don't be deceived by these shysters, because this is evil. This is Satan getting involved and using these experiences that God intends for good. He's using it for evil. So the title is It's All Good, because that's kind of the message. Let me see. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look. First of all, there was one particular woman by the name of Anastasia. And she has become quite famous, and the New Age people love her. She gets interviewed over and over because she had this near-death experience. Now, she's calling it a near-death experience. I have a hard time with her story being a near-death experience, because here's what happened. She went to the dentist office, right? She had to have like a wisdom tooth pulled, okay? And while she was experiencing nitrous oxide, she came out of her body. Yeah, that's what she's saying. And she had this wonderful experience.
It's just a hallucination.
Bottom line, this is what I would call a psychedelic experience. Okay, so even if she came out of her body, her heart didn't stop. Okay, there is no record that she was hospitalized or that her heart ever stopped. And so this is like the loosest definition ever of a near-death experience. And how long did it last? Oh, it could have been seconds to minutes. And so from that brief encounter, because she didn't see hell, because she felt really good, the assumption is there is no good or bad. Everything is cool. It doesn't matter what you do. Everybody's good. And so we all have nothing to fear because of her 40-second adventure in a dentist chair. So we can do whatever we want, and it doesn't matter. And that whole Christianity thing, forget about it. That's not true. There is no good or bad. God doesn't care. He loves us. His love is so big, it doesn't matter what you do. Everybody goes to heaven. That's the message.
One of the questions that keeps coming up in my mind is the sort of life review. Did you experience that as part of that, or can you unpack that a little bit more maybe, or tell me about it?
Yeah, and I'm familiar with the life review because I have to say that I've been a pretty avid consumer of NDE since my experience, so I understand exactly what you're asking about. So in my experience, I did not meet another entity or another spiritual being. I did not go to another place where I saw lush gardens, or even some of the distressing NDEs where they go to places that are less desirable. And I did not have what somebody would call a formal life review. What I experienced though, and maybe this is a life review and maybe it isn't, it's impossible for me to know, was I experienced what I felt like was all the feelings that I've ever had as a physical being in this body. But I felt like I also experienced everything that everybody had ever experienced ever. So maybe it was like a life review, but on the collective level versus a personal. But it was not something that, at least from the stories I've heard, it didn't follow the same script as other life reviews as I've heard them described by other people.
Yeah.
So this experience continued, and it's impossible for me to know how long. It might have been seconds, it might have been minutes, because time just didn't exist. At some point, I came back into my body. And when I snapped back into my body, I opened my eyes and I was looking up, and the dentist was there. And I remember there was this concerned look on his face, like, "Are you okay?"
So that's our whole experience.
That's it?
That's it. Yeah. Now here's the thing. Okay, let me give you the model here, and this is just my model for near-death experience based on what I've observed and everything. When you come out of your body, if you don't get the hell experience and you just go out there into the universe and you don't see any deceased relatives, you don't see the Lord or anything, you're still, when you come out, unless you're in the hell experience, see, God is right there. He's so big. He is all over. And you're a soul, a naked soul in God's universe. You pick up on that, and that feeling of, oh, it's like all the feelings I ever had. You're now in the realm of eternity. So yeah, you do get to experience that. You do sense this oneness. But the oneness you're feeling is radiating from God. So even though you're not seeing him, you're in his universe, and you're feeling that as a raw soul. So when people come out and they feel this incredible love and this intense oneness with all things, that's coming from him. It's because you're a naked soul in God's universe, and you're picking up on that. Because that's where we came from. We came from him. Now the thing is, Jesus says very clearly in the great white throne judgment, at the very end, he's going to say to one group, "Depart from me." Where were they before? They were with him. And that's the thing. And so, yeah, everybody has a lovely experience at first. What Jesus says is that not everybody gets to keep that. So the fact that she had a lovely experience does not prove that there's no good or bad. It doesn't prove that there's no hell. It means she may have actually popped out of her body and experienced a taste of the glory of God. That's it. That's it. But for her to come to all these wacky conclusions, that is a big problem. Yeah.
Was she a psychiatrist, doctor?
Absolutely not. In fact, I'm going to get into her psychiatric situations, and she is so off, it's laughable.
Are you a religious person? And if so, has your religious beliefs changed after the experience?
Well, that's an interesting story about my background. So, without going into too much detail and boring everybody, I was raised by an atheist. So I spent my entire childhood up until my early 20s really being raised without any type of religious influence at all. In my 20s, I married into a preacher's family. And so my then husband's father was a preacher in the Reformed Church of America. So just by that relationship, I became exposed to the Christian religion and was really kind of thrusted into it. At one point, I was trying really hard to understand it. I wanted to be supportive of my husband. We had a lot of decisions to make because, as we started to have kids, what were we going to do with our children? Are we going to have them baptized and things of that nature? So I found it was really important for me to get involved and understand and learn more about Christianity. At one point, there was a time, I would say about my mid-20s, where I did what I called church hopping on Sundays, because I was so interested in different denominations and different pastors and their philosophies. I just wanted to go to as many churches as possible so that I could understand.
Okay. When people do church hopping, it's very kin to doctor shopping. And the reason people doctor shop is because they're looking specifically for a doctor who will give them what they want. That's why people doctor shop, because they want a doctor to say what they want them to say and to do what they want. In the same way, when people go church hopping, what you're doing is you're shopping for, now if you're a legitimate Christian, it might be that you're looking for a church that's actually Bible-based, and you want a pastor that's prepared. Okay, so there is a legitimate church shopping thing where you're looking for a pastor who's actually a Christian, who you can tell they're a Christian by what they don't have to read to you, they're not boring, and they know the Bible well enough, and they can they can be engaging, and you want to sit there. So that's a legitimate reason to actually shop around. She's talking, oh, I was just so interested in denominations. That is, okay, clearly that's not what she was doing. She was looking for a church that will have beliefs like she does. Okay, now I'll prove that as we go further on. Because I looked her up, okay? So she was looking for a Christian church that had beliefs like hers. That's what she was shopping for. Originally, she found one. Guess what church she ended up liking the best? Rob Bell's church. Okay? Rob Bell, the so-called Christian who doesn't believe in hell, believes in gay marriage, and doesn't believe that Jesus is the only way. That's the church that she said, oh, that is so good. I found her comments on his website. Oh, she just loved him. Everything he had. That's what she was looking for. So when she says she was doctor shopping because she was just so fascinated by all of the denominations, how wonderful! I want the flavor of all of them. No. She was shopping for a church that believed. Instead of actually getting into the Bible, and if you really want to understand, you don't understand, nobody cares about denominations. If you really want to understand God and what Christianity is, you get into the Bible. You don't hop from church to church, because Sunday morning church is not where you learn all of the Bible. That's something that's called Bible study, and you have to do that on your own. So she's making it sound like I just wanted to know God. No. You were looking, what you're saying makes no sense. What you're trying to do is make yourself look good. But the fact of the matter is, we know why you were hopping around. You were specifically looking for something that you believed. You're not looking for spiritual truth to conform your values and beliefs to God's. You are looking for a religion that says what you already believe.
And then I ended up getting divorced in my early 30s, and I left that family. And so I had this kind of weird transition period because I never really felt like Christianity was right for me. There were just a lot of things about the doctrine that it didn't logically make sense, and I'm a very pragmatic person.
So yeah, that art degree. So I'm too scientific for that. It's like pragmatic. So bottom line, look, just spell it out. You didn't believe that sexual sins should be actual sins. Now, the thing is, she left her husband and her family, and then she got remarried shortly thereafter. So I'm thinking, the likelihood is she initiated the divorce. I can't prove that. But then she got quickly married afterwards, which suggests there probably was something going on. Now, the thing is, what if you don't like the idea that you did a really big sin? As a Christian, this is a huge sin. This is not something you can just make go away. But if God doesn't care about right and wrong, then it's no big deal. It's no big deal. There is no guilt, no shame. No guilt, no shame. You can abandon your family, and no guilt, no shame. It's all going to work out okay. So there is a reason why this is something she might want to gravitate to.
And so I had this period of time where I started to explore spirituality. So things that were more on the mindfulness side. So looking at Buddhism and meditation. I started to get involved in learning about different types of like mystical practices and tools and things like that. That didn't quite fit right for me either, because the mysticism part of spirituality just felt a little bit ungrounded for me. One of the turning points, and this happened before my NDE, actually happened in 2011 for me. And it happened at a hospital. My mother had gotten very ill, unexpectedly ill, was put into the ICU, and she was declining rapidly. And this was, this was over 10 years ago now at this point. And so as I'm coming out of this point in time of Christianity, and I'm in more spirituality practices, I was really wrestling with what to do for my mom. for her last day. Was I going to bring a pastor in to do a bedside prayer? Were we going to do anything of that nature? Because my mom was an atheist. And so I wanted to respect her views, but I was also wrestling with my own understandings as well. And I'll never forget it. This is the moment everything shifted for me. The hospital chaplain had come to visit me because she was declining so quickly. And I shared with him this conflict that I had because she's an atheist. And he looked at me and he said, you know what? God is so big that he can handle your mom's beliefs. Don't worry about that. And it just struck me where God is so big that every single belief, everything that we can conceive of our understanding of a God or a higher power, they're all right. Every single one of them is right because God encompasses everything. And I just had such a sense of relief when I heard that. And I feel like that, coupled with my experience, they just kind of complete this understanding that I have of what's on the other side. And all of our attempts here through religion, spirituality, whether you're agnostic or atheist, they're all right. It's all right because it's all part of this big, vast oneness, this higher power, whatever words we want to use. They'll all fall short because it's so big. Everything that we try to label it is always going to be limited.
That just, isn't that wonderful? It's all right. Doesn't matter what you believe. It's all right. So
You know, Jesus says that too. I forgot what book it's in. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Whatever you want.
All I went through,
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter.
Do you want to eat a peach or a roach? It's the same. It's the same. There's no
She did
difference.
say one little thing that was right.
What's
She
that?
said we all fall short.
Yes, that is true. Yes. That one she got.
Yeah,
Yes.
a blind squirrel.
Yeah.
I think she was trying to rationalize her mother's death. She needed to know her mom wasn't going to hell.
Yeah.
She needed atheism to be okay with
There you
God.
go. Yeah. That's right. So it's all cool. It's all cool.
I do believe she had an NDE.
I think, well,
A nasty dental.
yeah. A nasty dental experience. Yeah, okay. There you go. Yeah. So yeah, that's her conclusion because two things. A, this chaplain, who's like the authority on all things Christian, said that it doesn't matter what you believe, God is cool with it because he's all right. And so it's no matter what you believe, it's right. No matter what. Again, a roach and a peach are the same. Okay. So yeah. All right. Now, there are issues. There are logical issues with that. Imagine an alien lands on Earth in Nebraska, and he needs deuterium, for his fusion reactor, and he's looking for an ocean. They told him there was an ocean on Earth, and he lands in Nebraska. He gets out of the ship. He walks around for 2 hours. All he sees is cornfields, and he goes, "You know what? There are no oceans on Earth. There's none." And he takes off. You think, well, that would be stupid. Nobody would make such a dumb movie. If he's smart enough to come here, there's no way he'd be dumb enough to just walk around Nebraska looking for an ocean, right? But that's her. That's her. She had an out-of-body experience lasting seconds to minutes, and she comes away with the conclusion that, well, since I didn't go to hell, and I felt wonderful. I felt oneness. Therefore, that's eternity. That's all there is to it. Yeah, that's called faulty inductive logic. That's horribly faulty inductive logic. Okay? I basically did a little research on her, and I found her praising Rob Bell. How wonderful. You sent me that. Rob Bell is not a Christian. Rob Bell is a cult member. I was fooled by him myself when I first started teaching the class at Ward. I used his videos because I thought the guy was a Christian. Okay.
I wonder if he just gradually got off track.
He did. I'm sure that's how it always happens. He graduates. He graduated from a Christian school and everything, but he decided, that God was bigger than the Bible. That there is no hell. There is no, gay marriage is cool. Everything's cool. That's Rob Bell up there. Yeah, that's Rob Bell up there. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and so I find her. Thank you, Rob, for introducing us to people. Since hearing him on your podcast, I've been almost obsessively absorbing his work. And that's Peter Garrett down there. He's a politician in Australia and so forth. But he said that's where she landed. That was That was what she loved. Shortly thereafter, she ended up leaving her family. Okay, so now Rob Bell, by the way, is on the Oprah Network. And what kind of people do Oprah like? Oprah likes universalists. Universalists are people that say, yes, my way is one way, but I accept all ways. And Rob Bell falls into that. So he's part of the Oprah kingdom. All right, and that's what she liked. You know, what she just described, those beliefs are 100% consistent with Oprah. So she is using her flimsy near-death experience to justify the Oprah view of spirituality. All right, now she's writing books. I mean, this near-death experience, she's gotten a lot of traction from her so-called near-death experience.
Such a tiny experience.
I know. She's been very successful. She's this big-time Reiki healer. Do you know what Reiki is, by the way? Anybody know what Reiki is?
Yeah, they do the hands.
That's right.
Body.
Reiki is essentially, it's very occult. The Reiki practitioner is using her soul energy to heal you when she lays her hands on you. All right, you have to take classes. And she's considered a Reiki master. So she can teach you how to do Reiki too. All right, this is very different than faith healing and the laying of hands. And even the Catholics said, no, we don't accept this. This is a cult. It has no place in our churches. This is an occult practice. It is inconsistent with faith healing.
A few days ago, I interviewed Anastasia Westerlake Woolring. She's a life coach and Reiki healer and many, many other things. A very successful businesswoman out of Chicago. I first came across her on TikTok, where she was talking about her near-death experience that she had, and that's what most of our conversation is about. But what really sparked my interest in her, and the reason I reached out to her, is because she made a video, and she said this.
You can't be going around telling people that there is no good or bad and that love is the most important thing. Why? Because people who do horrible things should have to pay. They need to know that there's right and wrong. Why? Because if they don't know what's right and wrong, then they might do it again, hurting more people. Why? Because people who do bad things always do bad things. They're evil. Why? Because they don't have any love in them. Why? Because they've never experienced love themselves. Why? Because they didn't have anybody to show them love or teach them that love exists. Why? Because many of us were taught to punish. We weren't taught to love.
When I first heard those words, it took a little while for them to sink in because I was a little bit earlier in my deconversion process from Christianity. And there's still a little part of me that believes in hell and damnation and punishment and all that other kind of thing. The recovering conservative part of me still thinks like that.
Okay, so later on he talks about how what she believes is consistent with his psychedelic experiences. Okay, so the thing is that she reads that and it sounds like, whoa, that's really deep, until you think about what she just said. And it's nonsense. The first thing she said, you can't go around, so she's talking to herself. Says, you can't go around telling people that there's no good or bad and that love is the most important thing. Well, the fact is, love is the most important thing. So that part is true. But that first part, you snuck that in there. That is way out to lunch. You can't go around telling people that there's no good or bad in that love. Why? Because people who do horrible things should have to pay. They need to know that there is right and wrong. Why? Because if they don't know what's right and wrong, they might do it again, hurting more people. Why? Because people who do bad things always do bad things because they're evil. Why? Because they don't have any love in them. So she goes on with this whole thing and says, what is the point of this? What are you actually saying? What is the conclusion of all this? Well, basically, it's if people experience love, they will do nothing bad. Once we experience love, all our behaviors are good. Therefore, there is no bad. So all of the bad that happens is because people never experience any love. That is utter boop, bleep, 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 bleep. I mean, that is such stupid, tripping nonsense. It's like, do you have any experience of life on earth, lady? What is wrong with you? That is utter, complete bull. I mean, it's disproven every single day. That's like, this is utter, complete nonsense.
But this is how they justify it. They're not responsible.
Yeah, yeah, it's not their fault. If they'd had one person showing them some love, they would have been goody goody. It's like
This
that is
fits right
just
into their one-size-fits-all.
absolutely. This is utter nonsense. I mean, Cain's grandfather was God. God was still talking to Adam and Eve, and Cain, he was still talking. And you think God didn't show him any love, or that Adam and Eve showed him no love? He still killed his brother Abel. Jesus loved Judas. He let Judas kiss him. Okay, I mean, you got love from God Himself. He still betrayed him. I have a patient. I've talked about her. I'm going to use her real name here, Kara. But I went. Steve and his wife. I know them. They from we went to college together. They've been in my Bible study. They're great. Both parents, awesome Christians. Both. His wife is a professional psychologist, okay? His husband's an engineer. They were solid Christians. They adopted this little girl. They showered her with love. I've had dinner with them. I know this family well. I mean, I talked to the kid when I was a kid. She grows up, turns 18. What does she want to do? I want to do drugs and become a porn star. Okay? I mean, and this is not, these things happen all the time. So you're telling me that she wants to do bad things because she never experienced love? So you're accusing the parents? I know these people. And how many times in my own practice have I seen cases like this where the parents give too much love? I mean, they're going over backwards. And the kids turn out horrible. They do unspeakable, terrible things. So her premise, I mean, it shows you have any experience whatsoever dealing with actual people. You know, I mean, do you have anything? And she's not been a therapist. She's not been a social worker. She's not been anything, okay? And she's coming out with these crazy things, and people are listening to her. She is, socially speaking, she's an airhead. She really is. The thing that she just said is so easily disproven. Okay? But what she just said makes no sense. Just like, oh, you can be Muslim, Christian, atheist, agnostic, Satanist, wicked. It doesn't matter. It's all good. It's all good. God is so big. It's all true. Something that our hearts, I want to feel like I'm a good person without having to change. I don't want to give up my drugs. I don't want to give up my sexual stuff. I don't want any shame, and I want to still believe I'm a good person. And Buddhism offers you that. That's one of the number one reasons why people switch from Christianity to Buddhism is to get rid of, usually it's the sexual stuff. I don't want to feel guilty for my hang-ups. I don't want to feel guilty for my drug use, for my infidelity, or for my extramarital sex. I don't want to feel guilty about that. And Buddhism allows me to do that. And and this Oprah religion that she's got going on is the same thing. I can do whatever I want and live to please myself. And guess what? It's all okay. Because in the end, we go to this wonderful place where we feel one with the universe. And it's all about love. In the name of love, I can do whatever I want. You know, where was that love when you left your husband and your family there? Okay, what happened there? You know, where was that? Where was that? Yeah, with your, yes. Now, come to the Bible here. And the thing is that, you know, for so-called Christians who eat this stuff up, it shows you have a really anemic understanding of the Bible. And that's the kindest thing I can think. There are so many verses, both Old and New Testament, that make it very clear God is not cool with anything. He makes it very, very clear that what we do on earth, it matters. It matters a lot. Ezekiel 18:20, the soul who sins shall die. The son shall not suffer for the iniquity of the father, nor the father suffer for the iniquity of the son. The righteousness of the righteous shall be upon himself, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be upon himself. You are going to be held accountable for your behaviors. You, not your children, not your parents, you individually are going to be held accountable. Luke 12:5.
In the meantime, when an innumerable multitude of people had gathered together, so that they trampled one another, he began to say to his disciples, first of all,
beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. For there is nothing covered that will not be revealed, nor hidden that will not be known. Therefore, whatever you have spoken in the dark will be heard in the light, and what you have spoken in the ear, in inner rooms, will be proclaimed on the housetops. And I say to you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body and after that have no more that they can do. But I will show you whom you should fear. Fear him who, after he has killed, has power to cast into hell. Yes, I say to you, fear him.
Now this is, according to the Oprah-based religion, this is crazy wrong. Oh my gosh, no. You don't pursue a religion. You don't pursue God based on fear. No, you're afraid of going to hell. That is completely, no, that's the wrong motive. In fact, if you even hint to somebody that if they don't get right with God, they're going to hell, that is immoral. Okay? Now here we see Jesus, God himself saying, if fear of judgment motivates you to come to God, that's fine. Okay? You should fear him. Here's God saying, you need to fear me. You need to be concerned because I will make you pay. All right, so that whole idea, everything she just said, Jesus contradicts that point blank. Point blank. And then in Revelation.
Is that John, starts with a C.
Yeah, Caviezel. Yeah. Then I saw a great white throne and him who was seated on it. From his presence, earth and sky fled away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and the books were opened. Then another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged by what was written in the books, according to what they had done. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead who were in them, and they were judged, each one of them, according to what they had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. Now, it says you're judged according to what you had done. This is God saying, look, Jesus said you're going to be held accountable, responsible for every idle word. Everything that you did, the judgment that you get is commensurate with what you did. So whatever sins you did, that's what's going to determine your punishment. So he's very clearly, everybody doesn't pay the same. The lake of fire is a description, a generic description that it's a place of suffering. But the suffering will vary according to what you did. Okay? Jesus made it very clear, for example, that the people that saw his miracles and rejected him are actually going to suffer worse than the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. So right away he's dealing, you think about this whole homosexuality thing and stuff? That's one thing, but guess what's worse? Seeing the evidence and turning a cold shoulder. Even, God himself is right there doing miracles, things nobody did, and choosing not to look into that. That is worse. So pride and laziness are a bigger sin. Jude 12:13. Now it's talking about people who set themselves up as Christian leaders and then use that power that they have to cause people to fleece people for money or to engage in sexual sins with the congregation. It says about them, it says, these people are like dirty spots among you. They bring shame to you in the special meals you share together. They eat with you and have no fear. They take care of only themselves. They are like clouds without rain. The wind blows them around. They are like trees that have no fruit at harvest time and are pulled out of the ground. So they are twice dead. Like the dirty foam on the wild waves of the sea, everyone can see the shameful things they do. They are like stars that wander in the sky. A place in the blackest darkness has been, a place in the blackest darkness has been kept for them forever. So blackest darkness is what you're talking about. When they go to hell, they're going to the worst neighborhoods you can imagine. So yeah, is there a hell? Absolutely. And it's based on what you did. If you deceive people, if you cause people to sin, your torment is going to be very, very, very bad. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. Saved from what? If everybody goes to heaven, if it's all good, it doesn't matter what you believe, everything's cool, this statement makes no sense. It makes no sense. Matthew 10, Jesus talking to the disciples, this is when he sent them out into 2 by 2 and said, don't take a purse with you or anything, and, just and all that kind of stuff. So they went and they started. So they're going to cities that have heard of Jesus. Jesus is now very famous, and everyone's heard of his miracles, and now they're going out and they're talking about it. And so this is some people should be curious. They should be going, well, tell us, you guys are authorities on this. We want to know. And so he says, now whatever city or town you enter, inquire who in it is worthy, and stay there till you go out. And when you go into a household, greet it. If the household is worthy, let your peace come upon it. But if it is not worthy, let your peace return to you.
And whoever will not receive you, nor hear your words, when you depart from that house or city, shake off the dust from your feet. Assuredly I say to you, it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city.
Okay. There's no way I'm going to have a Bible study and go through all the verses where he talks about judgment, because there's that many. So, this airheaded thing that she's saying, that everything is cool, that is so anti-Bible. That is absolutely, you have to be of the opinion that this whole Bible was completely made up. And the problem with being made up, though, is that we have copies that go back to the earliest one is the John Rollins manuscript, which dates back to around 120 A.D. That's in the lifetimes of secondhand witnesses. There was no time for the lies to be inserted. Okay, you're too close to the actual time period. That would be like me making up stories that John F. Kennedy claimed to be God. There's too many people that remember him. Okay, you can't do that. You have to be so far away from those experiences, and it's not possible. Okay, I can't even say something about, like, for example, that to say that Abraham Lincoln was never really shot. Okay, all right, that's I can't say that. In my lifetime, the last person that witnessed it was still alive in my lifetime. I remember the guy. I saw him on TV, and he witnessed Lincoln being shot. Okay, that happened in my lifetime. First-hand witnesses. That was over 100 years ago. So when our manuscripts go back into the lifetimes of the witnesses, you can't make this stuff up. In fact, all of Jesus' enemies admit that he did miracles. His worst enemies, everybody. The Romans said that he was a magician. The Jewish people said he was. Pharisees. Exactly. The Pharisees, everybody admitted this guy was doing miracles. Nobody was stupid enough to say that was made up. That is one of the firmest facts that we have in history. Of course, Jesus did miracles. There is nobody else in all of history who has a reputation like that. Not one person in all of history.
Then he said to the disciples,
It is impossible that no offenses should come, but woe to him through whom they do come. It would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea, than that he should offend one of these little ones. Take heed to yourselves. If your brother sins against you, rebuke him, and if he repents, forgive him. And if he sins against you 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day returns to you saying, I repent, you shall forgive him.
Increase our faith.
All right, now just think about what he is saying here. First of all, he says, look, people are going to be tempted to sin. That's a fact. It's impossible that doesn't happen, all right? But he says, you know what? But if you're the cause, if you're the one that are tempting people to sin, if you cause somebody to sin, then you'd be better off hanging a millstone around your neck. Don't be that person. And he's saying that there's a judgment coming. If you harm other people, if you cause them to sin, if you're the result of that, that's something God is very much paying attention. Now, if you've done that and we're Christians, then we're forgiven. But we need to be forgiving. But then he throws in this. So the idea is people are thinking, wait a minute, in my life, have I done something to cause? In fact, I guess I have. Okay, so then I'm starting, oh no, but wait a minute, I'm forgiven. I accepted Christ, and his blood cleansed me of all sin, so that even though I did that and should have a millstone hung around my neck, I don't have to pay that. And so he skips over, then he goes on, yeah, you're right, you've been forgiven. He says, but guess what? That is contingent on you forgiving, though. Because remember, he says, if you don't forgive men your sins, neither will your heavenly Father. How many times? And then he goes into that as often. If you got a brother that sinned against you and he repents, you better forgive him. Because if you want to get the forgiveness I'm giving you for causing people to sin, if you want to get in on that, you better be forgiving. That's how you get in on this. Okay, but it makes it very clear that Jesus threatens this judgment over and over. Jesus says, I am God, and I'm going to judge people for everything that's done. And the judgments that I'm meting out are very, very serious. You better take that seriously. You better take it seriously, because I am serious about this. Yeah. All right, so now I want you to keep in mind her thing that everybody's good. No matter what you do, everybody goes to heaven. Whatever you believe is okay. So don't worry about being judged by God. Everybody makes it. And in fact, in one of her videos, I believe she even included Hitler in that group. Okay. Now we're going to listen to the testimony of a young woman who has still not found quite her way, but the amount of suffering this kid went through because of the sins of others. I want you to think. You're going to meet several characters. There's Joy. There's Joy's mother, and then there's an evil man who I'm going to call Papa Joe here, okay? So I want you to think about, if God's just cool and everything everybody did is fine, and God is okay with it because he's so big. So let's listen to Joy's story here.
Okay, so I was in a situation, I was, my mom did a lot of drugs, and I ended up being in a place where, and for the audience, I don't know if anyone's read the book A Child Called It, but that was pretty much my life, but a little bit worse because my mom needed money for drugs, and I was a cute little girl. And so you can kind of... Anyway, there was this man, and we were homeless, and we moved in with him. Well, actually, my mom's like, here, you're going to move in with this guy. He's, like, going to be your dad, and you're going to go to school, because I wasn't going to school, and I was 12, I think. And you're going to go to school, and he has a daughter, and you're going to share a room with her, and weird stuff was happening. Like him being in bed with his daughter, and I don't want to go and see it. It's his daughter was 6, and he was doing stuff to her. And anybody that had possession of a child, let's say a nanny, babysitter, grandparents, anybody that had a kid and they needed money could take their kids to this man, and he had a whole basement set up. And he did things, horrible things to children on camera, and then would sell the videos online. So he was doing that to me, and I don't know if my mom ever got money or not, but I know she moved me in with him, and he started doing things to me. He kidnapped me. He took me to Mexico, and he didn't realize that my family is from Mexico. I know I look white, but my grandmother is from Mexico City, and my grandfather is from Guadalajara. So, like, I speak Spanish pretty good. I spent a lot of time with my grandma. And we got to Mexico, and he was trying to get us a hotel room. I don't know why he took me there. Looking back on it, maybe it was like he was going to sell me or get rid of me, or I don't know. But I thought I was being kind, and I started translating in Spanish for the guy that was trying to give us the room to stay in, and the man who had took me there freaked out. He lost it, like that I could speak Spanish as good as I did. And so he took me back across the border and took me back to his house, and he was like flipping out. He had me in a chair, and he had a gun to my head, and then he shot himself in front of me. I ended up in a catatonic state, and I ended up in a mental institution for about a year, in a catatonic state after he did that. My mom was under investigation, and so there was a protection order against her. She was not allowed to have contact with me. And when I was finally able to be released, they gave me to my grandmother. And my grandmother has always been an enabler of my mom. My mom wrecks her car because she's completely, out of it because she's been on a binge for 3 days, and she wrecks her car. My grandma buys her a new car. My mom's homeless. My grandma buys her a trailer. You name it, my grandma does it. It's bad. So they give me to my grandma. My mom starts calling my grandma's house and saying, "Give me back my daughter. Give me Joy. I need her back. I need Joy back. I'm going to lose my food stamps. I'm going to lose my welfare. I'm going to lose my Social Security money." So my grandma actually gave me back. And I found out later by looking through records that my mom was under investigation, and they had confiscated this man, all the computers and everything. And my mom took me to her therapist, and I guess the therapist wrote out a letter to the police department saying that I told him that none of that ever happened. My mom never did anything. The guy never did anything. Nothing happened. I found all this out by going back to the records and calling the police department and giving them the date and everything. Anyway, so I was back with my mom, and the abuse continued. The neglect continued. I had lice for 4 years straight. I had pinworms. I never ate. I had to steal food from grocery stores. It was severe. It was really intense and severe. And it's not just that, it's that her mental disorder was so intense, and being a little kid and having to deal with that was really, really, really bad.
Now, when you think about what Stacy was saying in terms of there's no good, there's no bad, there's no judgment, it's all good. And if you just get a little love, it solves all your problems. And you think, all right, you're telling me that the mother here and that evil man, those were all good, and they're all heaven for everybody because the choices they made were good. In some twisted way, it's all good. And you think about that, and you're going, okay, if God could wink at that and see that as good and allow this little kid, what they did to these children, completely evil. It just paints it in a different world. To tell people, don't worry about what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. You don't have to change. God's going to wink it away because his love is so much. It's okay. Bottom line, I don't care how the mom got this way because she was a spoiled little brat. Her mother enabled this, obviously, even as an adult. Her mother enabled. The fact that the grandmother gave her back to the mother, when the fact that this mother, pimped her out since she was a little child. She's been pimped out for sex so mom could have drug money, and you gave the kid back to her. You sharing the wickedness too. All you guys are evil, man. God's going to give him a little love, and that's going to solve everything. He's going to show him a little love, and that's going to fix it. Okay, then she had a near-death experience.
And so,
now, one thing I'm going to say, keep in mind, this kid, whatever she did, she has been put into extreme circumstances. She has nobody. She's in a terrible family. And I think that, well, if you don't accept Christ, you can't have a good... No, I think God understands. And God actually reached out to this kid. This is something, I've heard a lot of near-death experiences, but hers is kind of special. And I can see that God's saying, you know what, you can't help but feel sorry for this poor kid. She hasn't done anything to deserve being starved, being prostituted like that. She just happened to be born into the worst possible family we can imagine. Having to steal food to eat, exactly. It's like, oh, you stole, so you go to hell? No, okay. So anyway, I'm going to play that.
So I remember the way it started was that I was in a doctor's office, and my mom was getting medications because she had just got me back, and I was on a lot of medications. And she wasn't giving me my medications. She was selling my medications. And she went to the bathroom, and in this doctor's office, they had their own pharmacy. And so they called my mom's name for my medications. And I went up and I picked up the bag. And I remember sitting back down and opening the bag and looking at it and seeing all these pill bottles, tons of pill bottles. And I was looking in this bag. And I don't even remember thinking I'm going to do something bad to myself. I don't remember thinking that. I just went into the men's bathroom and I locked the door and I started just opening the bottles and pouring them in my hand, all the bottles, and putting them in my mouth and drinking water out of the bathroom sink in the men's bathroom. And then as soon as I was done taking everything, literally every pill that they gave us, I took every last one. I just sat down underneath the sink and I just sat there. And I don't know how I got to the hospital, but what I remember is that I sat up, so it goes black for a while. And I sit up on the bed and I'm looking around. There's all these people just like going crazy, and they have these hoses and this black stuff and these monitors and everything's beeping. And I'm like, why is everyone so upset? What's going on? Like, I felt so peaceful. I felt so calm. I was like, why is everyone so freaking out? And I just I stand up and I look behind me, and then there's this person on this bed. I was like, oh, that person. Oh, they must be sick or something. Like, I didn't understand. And they were like shoving a hose down this person's nose and like pumping like black stuff, and like it was so weird. It was so weird. And I was just watching this, and I remember just seeing that person and having no connection, like no reference, no nothing, just calm, absolute, and I had no reference of my life either. Like I had consciousness, but no like real thought about like, oh, this happened to me and I'm this person and this is my life, and none of that. Like, I had no memories of anything. And then it kind of goes black for a little bit again. And then I wake up in, like, I guess it's a recovery room, and there's all these black masses. You could tell they're people, and there's all these people sitting around my bed, and they're all holding hands, and they're praying for me. And this woman walks up and she touches my face and she says, you have to stay here. This is where you need to be. You're not done yet. I was like, okay. I remember also seeing a vase of flowers in the room, and I don't know why that was like so. I was so fascinated by that vase of flowers, but I saw a vase of flowers in the room. And I still don't understand why the flowers were so important to me, but they were in the room. I remember seeing them very vividly. Like, I couldn't see the beings. They were all blobby and black. But I could tell they were holding hands. I could hear them praying, like, Dear Heavenly Father, please, like, I don't remember, I'm just making this up because I don't remember exactly what they said, but it sounded like this. It was like, Dear Heavenly Father, please bless our friend or our family member or whatever they were calling me. And I don't remember them calling me by my earth name. That's another weird aspect of it, is that like they were calling me something, but I can't remember what it was. But they're calling me something, and they're like, in Jesus' name, amen. And then they kept like praying, like different prayers, like different things over and over. Dear Heavenly Father, give her the strength to continue on earth. In Jesus' name, amen. Like, they kept doing that over and over again, and they were all holding hands, and they were all around my bed, which also doesn't make sense because the head of the bed was right against the wall. But I very specifically remember, like an entire circle. Like, completely circled.
And that's interesting that they were doing a Christian-based prayer.
Yeah, that was also pretty weird to me. Like, I don't know. Because, like, growing up, my mom and I were part of a lot of different churches. Like, we first started as Seventh-day Adventists, and my grandmother is Catholic. But we weren't, like, hardcore into Christianity. My mom is very more into like Wiccan. She likes like doing spells and stuff. That's like her thing. So I don't understand why they were doing it that way. But yeah, that they were praying to like Jesus and God and stuff. So maybe Jesus is my patron. I have no idea. And I remember asking her, like, where did all the people go? Like there was people in my room, where did they go? And she was like, well, there's only been the 2 nurses, me and another lady. No one else has come to see you. And I said, no, there was a bunch of people. Like, a bunch of people came into my room. I saw them. And she was like, nobody's come to see you. Like, nobody would want to come to see you, is what she told me. And I'd been treated like crap my whole life. It's okay. I'm like, whatever. Then I asked her about the vase of flowers, because I remembered the flowers. And I was like, well, what happened to my flowers that were left in my room? And she goes, what flowers are you talking about? I was like, there was flowers in my room. I saw a vase of flowers. And she's like, why would somebody bring you flowers after what you did? Like, if my kid did that, I would kick their bleep. I was like, oh, okay. So she had like a weird pity but anger thing towards me. And so that happened. And I should also add that after this happened, I never felt alone again. Like, there's always something with me. Is that the best way to put it? I always felt alone when I was younger. I always felt alone because there was a lot of happening. Sorry. There was a lot of happening. And so I always felt alone. And then after this happened, I never felt alone again. It didn't cure me, but I never tried to take my life again.
Let me ask you this. When you saw those beings, were you outside of your body and you saw your body too? Like you saw them around your bed and around your body, and you were did you realize that was your body? Did you realize that was your body?
No.
Did you just said, hey, it looks like they're praying around some patient or something?
Pretty much, yeah. That's what I thought, is that these people just came in to take care of whoever this person was. Like, yeah, it was, yeah, I did see the body, yes. But again, it's the type of thing where you don't have that connection and you don't have the memories of that thing. When I call it a thing, I call the body a thing because to me, it's just a vessel for us to continue to do our work, whatever we're here to learn.
My initial thoughts were maybe the flowers were there and somebody stole them.
Well, see, that's why I asked the nurse, and she said, nobody's come to visit you, and nobody's brought you flowers, and why would they after what you did? And there was only 2 nurses that I had for those couple of days.
Right.
And, like, both nurses said that there was no flowers. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe it was like spiritual flowers.
It could be. It could have been.
Maybe someone from the other side was like.
Yeah, I mean, it could be some
I don't know.
Could have been a spiritual symbol. And did anybody personally know you were in there besides your mother and maybe your doctor?
I don't know. My big brother, Noel Natal, was staying with us at the time when I did this. And I don't know if he knew that I was in there or not, because he had his own stuff he was dealing with. My mom knew. I think my mom knew, but she never came to visit me. That's what the nurses said anyway. I don't know. I don't know if anybody knew that I was in there.
Yeah, it's kind of like...
I just remember the nurses saying that no one ever came to see me.
Yeah, well, she doesn't sound very nice, so you're suspect for what she says.
So, question. Who were those dark people that were holding hands and praying for her?
Angels.
That's one possibility. I've never heard of angels praying for people. Usually they do stuff, but it's the first time I've ever heard of angels praying for somebody. So that's one possibility, that it was angels. One thing I was thinking was that, yeah, exactly, people who were in heaven. That was my impression, that God really allowed people in, because usually he doesn't allow Christians in heaven to interact, but in this particular case, he allowed it, you know. I mean, because usually it's Christians who pray in Jesus' name. I've never heard of an angel praying in Jesus' name like that before. That's something that we do, you know. So it's like God says, you know, in this particular case, you know, this kid has had everything against her. I'm going to she doesn't have any friends. Yeah. There is nobody on earth that cares about her. But I want her to know that, you know, that I care. But I thought that was really, like, wow, this is very, and the thing is that, the story is just, it screams, this is she's not making this up, I mean, 'cause she doesn't even know what's going on. She's just saying, this is what happened. And she didn't come from a Christian family where she's seen this stuff. So it's just, this is what she heard. Now, this was her first near-death experience. She actually had another one. But in the meantime, Mormons started coming over to her house, okay? And she started, because this kid is all alone. And so she starts, she was hungry for something. And so she starts listening to the Mormons. And her next near-death experience is a little bit different here.
So let's get into your second NDE. What happened?
Okay, so I met this guy, and he's an exact copy of my mom. And my brother and I have talked about this before, because my brother married an exact copy of my mom too. I happened to marry a male version because I like guys, and he happened to marry a female version because he liked girls. So I met this person who's exactly like my mom in every way: narcissistic, self-centered, gaslighting you all the time, like just really insane. That's the best word for it. Completely nuts. But I guess, like what my brother said and my niece said, you go for what you know. Like, you try to find that the love of what you know. Like, so I only knew my mom. Like, my mom was my idea of, I guess, love. And so that's what I found. And he was doing a lot of drugs at the time. And I kind of just went along with it. And I stayed with him. And he got angry at me because I started taking classes from the missionaries. So the missionaries just happened to show up at our house, and they're like, hey, you want to take some classes? And I'm like, okay, whatever, sure, sounds fun. So I started hanging out with the missionaries and started taking classes, and he got upset about that. And then he had a computer that was locked, and he always locked it all the time. But one day he just happened to leave it open. And I went on his computer because I felt really curious, and I started seeing emails to other women saying that he made a mistake with being with me, and he wished he could be with that girl, and what a piece of crap I was. And I confronted him, and he got upset, and a fight ensued. And I don't remember the entire thing, but I ended up in the hospital. And I remember being in the hospital and waking up, and there's there's all these doctors and people, like nurses, just running around. They're putting like stickers on my chest. The doctor walks up to my body and does this weird thing that I don't understand still to this day, but he takes his hand like this, and he, like, right here in the middle of my chest, like, pushes as hard as he can. Like, he's like rubbing it like really hard. And I didn't feel his hand. And I remember thinking that he's pressing really, 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 really hard. Why is he, like, why can't I feel it? And then I sat up out of the bed, and I stood up, and I started walking away from the bed. I didn't turn around and look. I started walking away from the bed, and there was this lady, the black blob. Also, I should add, it was the hospital was full. What I mean by that is that, like, there was beings that I couldn't see everybody, but besides the nurses and doctors, there was tons, I mean millions of beings, like so many beings that the hospital felt cramped. Like the building felt cramped. It was so many. You could just feel it. It was so strong. And so this lady reaches out her hand, and I take her hand, and we walk through the wall. There's lots of other people in this train station. And so I turn to my left, and I can see a big, giant door with, like, glass squares all over the door. And you can tell it's glass, but whatever's on the other side is completely pitch black. And so I'm looking at this door, and it's pitch black on the other side. So I'm thinking maybe it's nighttime on the other side of the door. And then I started to feel this weird pulling sensation, like, I don't know, just like it, I don't know, just like I felt like I was being pulled. So I started walking towards the door. I opened the door and I walk into the blackness. Now this is where, and this was really scary. These things, these hands were grabbing me. They were like, grabbing at me and like ripping at my arms. I could feel it. It was so real. You could feel the claws. You could feel them like around you. You could feel the deep darkness. You could feel it. And I'm walking through all this and I'm scared, out of my mind scared. And so I remember when I was little, because my grandmother is Catholic, she taught me this prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. So I started saying that prayer, and I'm walking through all these hands that are grabbing at me. I'm like just scared out of my mind. And I start saying the prayer, and the things start mocking me. Whatever these things are, they're like, like that. They're saying stuff like that to me while I'm praying. But I do feel like me saying that prayer gave me strength to be in whatever situation I was in. Although they were mocking me and trying to grab at me, whatever I was saying or doing was protecting me from being pulled in by them. And then I see a light, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go for this light because it's so dark here. I cannot spend any more time here. And so I start running as fast as I can for this light. The only way, I get closer and closer to the light, and it feels like I'm a big thing, and I'm being pushed into a smaller thing. Like, maybe like I'm like a ball, like a giant fuzzy ball or something, and I'm being pushed into a bottle. Like, I mean, like pushed in, and I felt tons of pain, so much physical pain, and I remember just like crying out, and I was like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And Jesus came. And I know it was Jesus because I could feel it. I could hear it. I could maybe feel it. And I felt it. And he says to me, you have to go back because there's stuff you need to do and you haven't finished what you need to do. And I was fighting it so hard. I was like, no, I don't want to do this. Stop. No, this is so terrible. I feel all this pain. It's terrible. I don't want to be in this little shrunken thing. It's like I'm being stuck into this bottle. It's horrible. And finally, and it felt like 100 years of talking. Finally, I felt myself just like relax and give in. I was just like, fine, okay, I get it. So I just, and I felt myself like slime almost, just sucked back into this place. And I woke up a couple of days later, and there was a police officer by my hospital door. He was there to protect me. And I felt even more stronger, closer to that other side.
So, there's a big difference between these two near-death experiences. The one in the dentist chair, and and here you see, I mean, you know, this is not somebody, like, it's one thing when you hear a story about a Christian and they talk about Jesus, but there are so many of these near-death experiences that involve people that, you know, she is a sincere victim, and you can see God's heart went out to her, you know, even though she's being approached by Mormons and things like that, you know, he's still, I mean, I think that eventually she has a chance of making it. You know, she's not there yet, but I think the Lord has reached out to this kid because this kid suffered. I mean, you know, wow, you know, there's hope for her. There's hope for her. But what a difference between the two experiences. Now, this is a near-death experience. This is a bona fide near-death experience, okay? Now, you can't make a judgment about all of eternity based on her experiences, but you get some idea, you know, and, you know, that whole part about the Lord's Prayer, I mean, that sounds so like, yeah, I mean, she's just saying a prayer. She doesn't even understand. I'm sure she doesn't even understand. But just invoking that prayer, you know, Jesus shows up, you know.
I like the way she says, I knew it was Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody says that. Yeah, well, there you just know things, and when he shows up, everybody says that. You know who that is. You absolutely know who that is. There is no I wonder or you look like. There is knowing, and you know with an absolute knowledge. Like for example, when I had my experience, and my father showed up, I knew that this was. I knew I was sleeping, but I also knew with an absolute knowledge that this was real. You don't have the ability to question it. I experienced that myself. You know it. There's a feeling that comes over you that is unlike anything on earth. And it's where you are like, you just absolutely know. And you can't explain how you know. It is a feeling that we don't have here. But it's like, this is absolute truth, and you know it 100%.
What experience?
You know, when my Uncle Gene thing, I think I've talked about this many times.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay? But yeah, there's more of this, but we're way over, so we can complete this some other time. But it does, going back to that thesis of Anastasia, where she used her very poor, horrible near-death experience, which was like nothing. I mean, she's there for a second, she pops back, and then she comes up with this whole theology. And it's actually, on all of these radio shows, all of these people are interviewing her. She's a honey to the occult group. They love her because she's saying what they want to hear. Okay, but in the face of real evil, when you have somebody that has actually been a victim of real evil, and you say something as hollow as, oh, it's all good, it doesn't matter what you do or what you believe, it's all right because God is so big, it shows. I mean, this example here just shows you how utterly absurd and immoral that stance is. Okay? So anyway, we're going to stop here. Any last comments or questions before we do the prayer thing?